is just a map of Berlin, and the S-Bahn or U-Bahn, you know, electric train up. And the S-Bahn could go underground and above. U-Bahn is strictly underground, as I remember. So this one is the S-Bahn, and this goes out to Bernau. And right about here is where we usually got off, and Bernau is a little bit up there. That's as much as we can get from. And then this is just the different areas of Berlin.
Where's Tiergarten?
Tiergarten is the biggest part right in here. And who knows? And then there's another famous one, it's Unter den Linden, and that's right next to Tiergarten and the Kreuzberg.
So,
Those are different areas in Berlin.
right.
And then you've got the whole thing here, and then you go by these colors. Berlin area by area. Oh, around Unter den Linden, Museum, Tiergarten, Kreuzberg, Burgfürstendamm, Charlottenburg, and so on and so forth. I haven't really studied this one because I
Well-
haven't had time.
So what other crazy things did you do as a kid besides riding your bike across Germany?
I think that's probably the most crazy one,
So,
because there wasn't any.
and how many days did you do that?
Well, we had, I don't remember how many days, but it was all of summer vacation.
Right.
And summer vacation usually was about 6 weeks. It's not like here, you get the
Right.
whole summer off, you know. It was because in
And how long were you
So-
down there with relatives?
probably a week, maybe. I don't, you know, ever since I had that stupid memory loss thing, there is things that are just gone.
Right, and one of those things was you always saying that I was your favorite child.
Yeah, that is totally out of, it's gone. I don't remember nothing about that one.
Yeah. That was probably the most important memory you lost.
It's convenient to lose some.
Yeah, is that what it is? So,
Yeah.
distance-wise, that was probably around 450, because you rode almost all the way across from north to...
To south,
Yeah,
yeah, almost.
so you left Kiel.
Because it would not, Kiel, and it went all the way down to
How old would you
Stuttgart.
say you were?
I think I was 15.
15.
It was before I joined the church. So, and it was, so
Was
my
it a
sister.
single-speed bike, or did you like have multiple speeds?
Oh, no, just maybe 3 speeds. It was not a very expensive, we couldn't afford a big, expensive one. But I'm trying to think, so Giddy must have been 12. And so that had to be before she got her rheumatic fever. Because I think if she had it then, she would not have been able to do it. So we went together all the way through, and I went back by myself, and she went back with Mother on the train.
What was your relationship like with Giddy as you were growing up?
Oh, it was, well, Giddy was farmed out.
Oh, that's right.
So she was with this other couple up the street. But together, whenever we were together, we were fine.
Good
And
friends.
lots of times, again, this is, you know, I think she finally got, when we got the apartment, Mother took her, and we were together. because lots of times we would walk together or something, we'd go down to see grandfather, and it was a steep hill down, and she would dislocate her knee. And then I would carry her on my back home,
Up
And-
the hill.
up the hill, and somehow we got it back in. You know, that would happen several times.
Mhm.
But,
Ouch.
yeah, it was,
So how were you introduced to the church?
oh, that's when I changed schools again,
So
in middle school.
not only were you a biker babe, you were a rebel rouser because you kept going to different schools. Got it.
Well, you know, whenever mother got sick and had to go to the hospital, that was when my sister still was living
Mhm.
with this couple. Even so we had the apartment already. She farmed me out to different, and then, I don't know how many schools I went through. I figured it out one time. Anyway, I came back, and I was so far behind that I couldn't get back into my class that I was. But for some reason, mother knew where this teacher that I had in grade school, before I went to middle school, where I had all A's and, you know, I mean, I was, and so she figured out where that teacher was and what middle school, and that was in Kiel. So we lived actually outside. And so she contacted her and see if I would get into that school. And so I got into that middle school where she was actually teaching the class I was going into. And that's how I met Erica, which was in the same, and she was LDS. And that was after I got confirmed, so it was after I was 14,
Confirmed in the Lutheran church.
Lutheran Church.
Okay.
And, you know, we were talking about church for some, I don't know how we got to it. And I kept complaining that every time I had to go to church, my feet were so cold and everything, you know, it's cold in church. And so she said, why don't you come to visit me in my church? It's always warm in there. And that's how I got into it. And that was a mutual night, and so I went, and that was the end of the story.
No, not quite.
You know, so
When did
anyway,
Robert and Martha start teaching you?
probably,
So it was you that started it, not Grandma?
yeah. Well, so I was baptized when I was 17 in September. So that had to be just the winter of when I was 16.
Was Grandma baptized at the same time?
Yeah. So
Was she baptized by Robert?
I think so. I think Robert baptized most of us. But I just remember that we had a big tent up, so when we got out of the cold water and we're all wet
And where were you baptized?
On the
In-
Baltic Sea?
in the Baltic Sea. So we changed in that tent. And I remember Mother made me a white baptism dress, which was actually later on my nightgown. Flannel, white flannel nightgown. So, yeah, we had to walk quite a ways into the water.
So what brought you to the United States?
Well, I met this missionary I was supposed to get married to, and that of course didn't work out. So then I went, stayed in Provo.
Say that again?
Stayed in Provo for a month, and then Martha and Robert said, no, you're not going to stay
How
by,
have I not heard that story before that you...
because I'm not telling it.
Yeah.
So shush. And so anyway, Martha and Robert decided that was not where I was supposed to be, so they came and said, you come and stay, live with us. So I had a couple of young guys, students, drive with me up, because I was living with a German family that lived in the same apartment complex that we lived in Germany. And I, stayed and lived with them, but that was not a a good thing, so Martha and Robert said.
So how did Prince Charming over there come
Well,
into the picture?
now for
Oh.
the rest of the story.
Now for the rest of the story.
Now to the rest of the
I
story.
was in the Army, stationed at Fort Leonard Wood at the time. And let's see,
You came home.
I actually, let me finish the story, dear.
Okay, I'll finish. I'll shut up.
I had somehow became engaged to a young lady in Salt Lake.
Yeah, boy.
And you never heard this one before either?
Oh, no.
Anyway, we were actually supposed to get married on the same day that I met her.
Yes, isn't that
But
something?
I bought a car. It was a Chevrolet, I forget what year model it was,
A
but,
green one.
and it was a Chevy Coupe. But I didn't take her with me to buy it, and she got upset with me, maybe because of that, or
Whatever.
because of whatever, you know, she decided to give me the ring back. So I drove up to Montana to visit with my parents for a few days. Then I drove back to Logan, and Joyce and Blaine were going to school. Blaine was going to Utah State, and they were moving from their little apartment that they had over to the basement apartment at Robert and Martha Albrecht's place. And that house is still there. We've driven past it
Oh,
recently.
that's what we wanted to
You
do.
wanna do
We've
that?
got to do that tomorrow, before you do anything else. Got to
And-
drive by them.
Well, we'll see what happens, I guess. We'll just play it by ear, as usual. Anyway, I helped Joyce and Blaine move into the apartment, and that's when the day I met Hella. That was on the wedding day that we had planned to, and I had the
Yeah.
marriage license and the ring and everything to do that. And then I had an apartment rented out back in Waynesville near Fort Leonard Wood. We were supposed to stay there, but like I said, it didn't work out. So,
What was your first impression when you met?
well, mine was I was going to marry this girl someday.
And Hella, what was your impression?
I don't remember.
Okay.
That's a good way out of it.
No, I don't.
I like to tell people that my dad met my mom on his wedding day.
Yep, that's
And
exactly
they go,
right.
and they go, what?
Well, no,
Yeah.
that's not quite true. You better qualify that as
Yeah.
Well, that's how I
planned-
started
the
out.
planned wedding day.
Yeah.
So
Well-
how did you end up
Well, that's what I
pursuing?
say afterwards.
Well,
I mean, you said you
Well, I was
realized you were
stationed
gonna-
at Fort Leonard Wood, and I had to go back to my assignment. And we wrote, I wrote some letters to her, and
but his oldest sister at first wouldn't give me his address, so I couldn't write to him. Blame Joyce for that.
yeah, well, whatever. I'm not sure why.
I don't know either.
Anyway, when I applied for an early release, for an early discharge, because I'd actually gone in the Army in September. Sometime in the middle of December, I had to report to Butte, Montana, I volunteered for the draft. Then I re-enlisted for an extra year when I was in the Army. So I had 3 years of service, and by the time I got out, it was in September, so it was just about a complete 3 years. But I was committed till the middle of November or something like that. But I wanted to go to that year at school at Utah State University, so they let me out early so I could do that. And then we moved in an apartment just across the street from the Albrechts. It was the Amundson's place, and I slept. We had I had to sleep with another guy in the room. You know, we shared the same bed because they were, I guess, pushing them in there tight. You know.
Right.
Anyway, we got married on the 20th of December, which was right after that first quarter
of
that
school.
ended. I had finished my last exam, I think a day or two before, maybe. It wasn't the same day as the 20th, but it was not
So how long
before.
did you guys date?
About one
Just-
quarter,
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
just
one
that
quarter.
Okay.
and
And we got married on a Friday, very early. I think it was like the 8 o'clock or 7:30 session or something like that. We had our endowments before,
Uh-huh.
you know, so we were just for the ceiling. And Nolan Olson is the one who was the
he was
sealer,
the
and he was
temple
also
recorder
the
at the
temple
time.
recorder at the
Uh-huh.
time.
And he wrote a book called The First 100 Years of the Logan
I
Temple.
have that book.
Do you?
Grandma
Yeah.
gave it to us
Yeah.
when we got married.
Yeah, I've
Mhm.
got a copy of it.
And then Nolan, not knowing it at the time when I was getting my endowment in Switzerland, he was actually in Switzerland at the temple doing recording and stuff
He
like
was
that.
teaching him
Isn't that
Wait, wait.
interesting?
how to record.
We did that, you know.
She actually went through the first session after the Swiss temple was dedicated.
Right.
But I went through that, it was utter chaos.
So I understand there was a little excitement on the evening of your wedding.
Yeah,
Oh.
you know,
Joyce's husband and her twin.
my sister always talks
Brother.
about how anti-chivalrous she was, you know.
Mm-hmm, and she.
So all of a
instigated the
sudden,
whole
I
thing.
find myself surrounded by about 15 ladies. You know, just, we're packed in this room. And
Because it was in Martha and Robert's
I could breathe,
home.
but that's about the only movement I could make.
Mhm.
And I was in there looking at some of the gifts, you know, just kind of, oh, that's nice. And all of a sudden, boom, these sisters are all surrounding me. And that's when they kidnapped her, Blaine and Wayne and I don't know who all.
Just Blaine and Wayne, I think.
Anyway, they put her in the car, took her downtown to Logan. You know, that's up on the hill on
On Fourth, you know,
4th North and
that's-
6th East.
you know, 60 years ago. It's.
And how
it
was your
changed.
English at that time? Was it
That was
good?
I could get by, not as
But
good
somehow
as-
she got away from him and walked home.
And how did you do that? How did you get away
I
from
got
that?
out of the car because they had to stop at the traffic light or something, and it was a police station there, and so I ran this way and then I hid, and then I walked home, and I was, listen, all I had on my, not my wedding dress, but my
Reception dress.
reception dress, and that was a brocade, I still have it, but because of the snow that got wet, and so that got all flimsy, the hem. But every time I saw a car come up 4th North, there was lots of trees and bushes at that time. I would hide,
Were
so they wouldn't
panicked?
see me.
They looked for her all night long.
All night long, yeah, because I would go home and I went to the apartment.
Oh my goodness.
And they were still looking for her. They thought that she was still out on the street, so they looked for
I
her.
mean, did they come and fess up to you what had happened?
That I don't remember.
I don't either.
I don't remember, you know, we went to bed.
Uh-huh.
And that was
How,
all
well,
I
how
remember.
did you, how did
I
you,
think
how did you
I-
find her back? Because I'm
I think
assuming.
I called,
Martha
you know,
Roberts.
and I don't know who answered, but, you know, that is a big
It seems to me
big
like
blur.
they said she's over at the apartment, so you'll
Yeah.
go over there.
And
So were you angry or scared or upset? How were you feeling?
I was mad.
I mean, did you understand what was happening and they were just having fun or?
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I got away, so, anyway.
I don't know how long it's
They,
And
been
then
before-
we went
we had the
to,
last laugh, you know, because we found out that, oh, you know, gosh, what was it, about 10 o'clock when we went to bed or something
Yeah.
like that? And they were still out midnight, you know, driving
Is there a
down.
timer on it that says how long or?
So, whatever.
then a little sequel to that, I guess this is the rest of the story for this part. Years later, not too many years ago from now, actually, we had a family reunion in St. George. And I went to that, and Blaine
Blaine
had
was,
already passed away by
Yeah.
then.
but Wayne
Wayne
was,
was still there, and Wayne came up to me and he said, "Do you think Ella's still mad at me for doing that?" I said, "Probably."
Oh,
by that
okay,
time, and so
you,
many years down the road.
so you got married and you lived in Logan for how long?
Till I finished my degree,
And that was how many children later?
2.
2 children.
Him and Michael.
Okay.
Yeah,
And one time, he was crying. We were staying in Moody's house. And
Yeah,
Michael
that was
said,
before-
"Shut up, baby."
yeah, he was just born, and we had gotten a job in Idaho Falls teaching. So we were out of the little house and staying with mother for what, two weeks or so until we moved to Idaho Falls.
So-
And then we were there for a school year and came back.
So I was born here, and then right after, or shortly thereafter, we went up to Idaho Falls.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
were not even a month old.
So is there any
Yeah, you were born in
Interest-
August, we moved in September.
interesting things about their birth, Michael's, or?
Well, they were
Ralph's?
all three, Michael, Ralph, and Heidi, born in the LDS temple.
Hospital across
Oh,
from the temple.
Across the street from the
which
temple.
is
So when you go to the temple,
Now that hospital is no longer there, correct?
Correct.
there's a parking
It's a
lot
big parking
where the
lot.
hospital was. I took Heidi up there, parked in the middle of the parking lot, and I said, Heidi, you were born about 30 feet up in the air from me. And so were you.
Okay. So where you lived in Logan, what was interesting about these children and any of their habits? Because I remember a story about Michael kept getting in the water.
Oh, yeah,
The
okay, so
drainage or-
after we came back from Idaho Falls, we rented that house right next to the
Do you remember the
irrigation
address?
canal. Oh, yeah,
What's the
We can
address?
drive,
we can drive by
I
and
know, but
show
what
you.
is the address? Do you remember?
I don't remember what the number
That's
is.
okay.
We'll have to, well, we drive by there, we
And I'll
look
write it down.
at the
And
street
for
sign.
some reason, I can remember Albrecht's address. That was 571 Boulevard.
Yeah, well.
But this
that
other
the
address
others.
was, I think, is on
Well,
5th
it's,
or
okay,
6th North.
so 571 Boulevard, that had to have been 5th, because it's straight across 4th
Well, 4th is.
to the false
Okay,
lives.
571 is, that was a 6th East address.
Yeah,
Because it came out on 6th East
that's right.
and
So, on
it was
6th
right next to
East-
4th North.
Uh-huh.
And so we were either, I think we were probably 2 blocks. We were probably on 6th North and just a half a block from,
Because
6th East,
mother
so it'd
was
be
on
like
6th and 10.
it'd be like 550 or 575.
We'll check out that address. So
Yeah,
Michael
North.
liked water and Ralph liked
Okay.
to sleep in
Yeah,
Ralph-
various
See, here was-
places.
here was-
We've got
the
a
thing.
picture of him sleeping on a cement pad.
Because we had that house, so it's actually not exactly next to the canal, because there was old Sister Stuckey's house in between, and she was right at the canal. But we had ours fenced in with a gate, and Michael would open up the gate and go to the canal and throw rocks in.
You
Well,
better
there
not
was-
take this too far, Ralph might blackmail you.
That's okay. And so, right there at the canal is this little irrigation gate,
It wasn't-
so
Oh,
it is, you know, it's pretty steep in and slippery. And I was afraid that he'd leave the gate open and this guy would follow him and both of them get in there. So I had this little walking harness that on him, I put that on Michael, took him in there, and, you know, let him throw rocks, and then I pushed him in. And of course, having him on the harness, I could pull him right straight back out, and I told him, this is what will happen to you if you do this by yourself. And I think that sank in, because after that, he never did go by himself or left the gate open. He would take then his tricycle and go downtown.
well, that was up in Idaho Falls, wasn't it? Oh, no,
No,
no.
that was after Idaho Falls is another
So
story.
how old was everybody in Logan? So you went there and then you came
Just
back?
before we moved to Idaho Falls,
He was
Ralph was a
just
month.
2 months old.
Okay.
And
and
he
Michael was
played,
2.5
actually,
years older.
he was the Christmas baby in the Christmas pageant that we played.
Because
live
I
one.
was so angelic.
Yeah, well, he was only about 3
And
months
you had a
old.
ring around your head too then.
Yeah, and
That little halo
so
glow.
then we came back,
And how long
and
were
we
you
stayed
here?
in that house for quite a while, because Heidi was born there
Okay.
in
And
'63.
that's when I went to graduate school at Utah
Yeah,
State. I
and
was,
so Michael was 5 by the time Heidi was born. No,
Let's see.
wait a minute, 4. 59 to 63 is 4. It was about 5 when he would take his tricycle and go downtown.
it took me 3 years to get my master's degree.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so, you know, all this stuff, this kid, then he climbs the tree that was in the yard, chasing butterflies, and falls out and breaks his arm.
And not only that, but about a week after he got his arm out of the cast,
Cast.
he was walking from the car into a mud puddle and slipped and fell and broke it in the same spot.
Oh, no.
So they,
So-
okay, there's another 6 weeks for you, buddy.
And that's how he became left-handed,
Oh,
because it
okay.
was the right one.
I didn't realize Michael was left-handed. I
Yeah,
knew you were,
he's-
but I,
No, that's
Okay.
how Michael, so
so
And his
after
dad was
Logan.
left-handed also.
Okay. So after Logan, then where did you end up?
over
We were
the
in-
park.
Okay.
No,
we-
Fort Collins.
Oh, Fort Collins,
moved to
yeah,
Fort
Fort
Collins.
Collins.
from
Oh,
Logan.
yeah,
And that's another story. We bought a big 12 by 60 foot
house
house
trailer
trailer
in Logan
and
and
had it delivered from Logan to Fort Collins. And unbeknownst to us, when they built the trailer, they skewed
The wheels,
the axle. I don't know if they did both of them or not, but you know,
one of
the
them,
wheels were like this
instead
compared to
of,
a line, you know, the perpendicular should have been, they should have been like this, but they were actually
I
like
think
that.
that
Or
one of them
like
was.
this, I don't know which angle they were at, but at least one of them was off. And the truck driver that delivered it, well, no, later on. Okay, when they broke down, like in Rock Springs, Wyoming, I think, and we had a bunch of meat in the freezer, and
Green River,
Green
Green
River.
River, Wyoming,
and the trailer sat there for about a week, and we were waiting at our hotel,
in
a
Fort
motel,
Collins.
Oh,
you know, for that thing to show up. You know, we got us and 3 kids, right now,
And a
'cause
cat.
Heidi- and the cat,
And
in the motel
dirty,
room.
dirty clothes
no
hamper.
clean clothes. And we went to church in our Levi's, and one of the vet students took pity on us and invited us out to lunch.
But
Finally,
on
the
the
trailer
way,
showed
no, that was when we went from Fort Collins to Kansas. Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was 4 years
So-
later after I got my PhD.
Yeah.
We moved from Fort Collins to what was the name of that town? Edwardsville, Kansas?
Something like
Yeah.
that.
So what were some of your favorite memories of Fort Collins?
I
Well,
worked at the hospital. Yeah, that's it. So we had this house trailer with bedrooms on either end. And the kids had the big one in the end.
Would you
And
flip the
bunk
screen?
beds. So anyway, now I lost my train of thought.
Okay, you
So
talked
you
about
trailer.
the trailer with
Oh,
the
so we had
living
the
area.
bunk beds for the boys and a single bed, small one, across from the bunk
Can
beds.
I tell the story about the cat first?
Well, let me finish this and then you
Okay.
can do the cat.
That's fine.
So anyway, Heidi, they had gotten these model rockets for airplanes. to
Michael
shoot.
was,
Michael?
and Estes Rocket.
Estes, you know. And so Heidi played Superman. She jumped from the bunk bed, the top one, onto her bed with one of those tubes in her mouth that these little rockets came in. And just
Enough.
was steady.
Okay,
steadying.
no, go back a little bit. Start with the Estes things again.
Well, she jumped across from the top bunk bed to the bottom her bed with a cardboard tube in her mouth, and it forced it back into the reamed out her tonsil. The doctor said it was the best dissection of the tonsil he's ever seen.
So how did you pay for it if you didn't have insurance?
Well, I didn't have to pay for anything.
The
Since
doctor
I
was
worked
really
here, total bill came to $75 for the hospital.
Wow.
Because that was just using the operating room to take the tonsils and the adenoids out. And then he said, well, you work here, that's fine. I know, this doctor was fantastic. They had to recuperate in the hallway instead of recuperate in the room.
Was that Dr. Skabelin?
No, Dr. Heitz.
Oh, that's
Skabelin was Logan. And so he said, when you get off your shift, just take her home. And then bring her back 2 or 3 days later. Give her ice
So
cream and
Dad,
chewing
you were
gum.
in charge of watching the kids?
Well, I was
He was
studying
studying
in
in
the
our
other
bedroom.
and all of a sudden I heard
So
this,
yeah,
this scream. What's going on now?
and so he
Break
calls
these
me,
kids.
it was almost, I worked from
I had nothing to
3
do
to
with it.
11, shift.
Well, you were a witness.
So anyway,
Come on, Heidi, you
And
can do it. You
it
can
was
do it.
so good, it wasn't even bleeding.
yeah, it wasn't bleeding. I mean, that was the
But it
weirdest
was
thing.
very
When
painful
he
for her.
calls
Yeah.
me on the phone and says, what do you want me to do? I says, bring her down here. get it in here as fast as you can. And so,
So
you
did
know.
you leave these two yahoos
Yeah.
at home?
No, I think
I
I
don't
brought
know,
them
I
with me.
think I brought them all, yeah. And then
No, I
this
knew what would
doctor
happen if I
never
did
never gave us a bill
That was
for
nice.
doing that. Yeah. He
And then-
was good.
We had a cat, and you know, sometimes you hear cats screaming at night, and then all of a sudden Michael said, "Dad, there's something wet in my bed." And this cat was having kittens in his bed.
Oh no.
So I woke up the kids and let them finish the cat finish the
Put it
process.
in a bathtub. Yeah, put the cat and the kittens in the
Figured it was a
bathtub.
good lesson on reproduction.
Do you remember that?
So Rob, what are some of your memories of Fort Collins?
That I was a perfect angel all the time.
Yeah, right.
No.
Oh no, there's
one-
one other story I just remember because she just told it the other day. I was baking Christmas cookies and it had snowed and I didn't have enough eggs, so I sent him for eggs with that station wagon that we had. And he took all the kids with him and this lady stopped for a green light.
Yeah, green light.
And so of course he hit her.
It was snowing, the roads were very slick,
Yeah.
and I lost control of my vehicle.
And since he was a student and he didn't have enough money to pay the fine, they took him and the kids to the jail.
So you've been arrested, Rob.
No, I've
What
been
I
in
should have
child
done was-
services.
Stayed there in jail until, well, I don't know how long they would have kept me there.
I don't know either, but
There was some
anyways,
good
I had to
kids
call
out
here.
here.
With the
And I
kids,
didn't
you know.
have enough money left either, no cash.
So we had to get the bishop to bail me out. To bail us out.
What an impression you must have made.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, he gave me a recommend, though. No, I didn't, well, I don't remember if I,
whatever. But anyway, that's what happened. And we paid him back later
Yeah.
on, you know.
The only really thing I remember was there was a creek or something close to the trailer park. And I remember one of the winters, I think Michael and I were out there and we wanted to see how far we could walk out on the ice.
you found out, didn't you?
Yeah, and well, it was almost to the edge where the ice was thin before I fell through.
I don't remember that because
Yeah, I
I
do.
was probably working.
Yeah.
I remember I come home and I don't remember somebody threw me in the bathtub with water.
Well,
Is your
because
clothes on?
my shift
No, I
was
don't think
like
so.
Dad and I would go to work and he would come home and we'd cross each other on the highway there, you know.
Hi, bye, you know how
Yeah.
that goes.
Yeah, I do.
And, you know, because the trailer park, there's just lots of students and
Yeah,
people always watching. There
yeah.
was actually another LDS family, an older couple that lived there and they kind of kept an eye on it.
And didn't you
kids.
make cakes and things? or-
Yes, I did a lot of cake decorating to sell.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did that.
She had one that she made in the form of a church,
Oh, that was a job.
and we had to take it to Loveland.
Yeah. And we had the
Good.
car, in the car, it would have been perfectly fine, the cake was good and everything. But it was in the winter,
The
so
car
it was in
warm.
the car and we had the heater on and all of a sudden the
Wow.
cake was going a little bit and I noticed it and just, oh, let's open up all the windows. We got there and we fixed it.
Everything was good.
And everything was okay, but yeah.
Oh,
Those are
so then
things you
after
learn.
Fort Collins,
Then we moved to
Overland Park.
Edwardsville.
Edwardsville, and then we stayed there for about 6 months because they was him being in first grade. What was the kindergarten?
I thought it would have been like advanced, you know.
Yeah,
See, that would
right.
have been in
mhm.
70? It was 1970 when we left Fort
what'd you
Collins.
do in Edwardsville?
That's where we
When-
moved to.
That's when we,
And I-
that was a
Okay.
I
trailer
had a job
park.
at the Ospattic College, so I was
Okay.
committing to the college.
Yeah, and so the school was terrible. He would come home crying and says, "We gotta get out of here." And so,
Got in a fist fight, I remember that. And then,
Really?
yeah,
no, that,
yeah, no, I got in a fist fight because I
Oh.
remember the principal took me in. I don't remember if that was, I'm pretty sure that was in Edwardsville. Because the principal took me in and said, "This is the third time you've been in my class." And I said, I've only been here for a week and they spanked me. I
Yeah,
remember that.
something, yeah, and so we said, we gotta get out of here.
Mhm.
And so then, one of the professors said, well, why don't you, here's a real estate lady, and she happens to be LDS, which he didn't know, but we didn't know either until we got to meet her. And then she found us, the house we
On
bought,
74th and Lowell.
and helped us sell the trailer. We had enough accumulated in the trailer that we got $5,000 out of it, and that was our down payment on the house.
And then we sold the truck to a fellow, his last name was Wheaton. I think it was Matthew Wheaton.
The truck, yeah, that we pulled it, had the,
Tried to
well,
pull the
we
trailer.
tried to pull the trailer ourselves from Fort
I
Collins.
was
but
able
we
to
got it
manage to get it from Fort Collins to Denver,
to
and that was
Denver,
about
that was
as,
it.
because the truck kept overheating, I couldn't get out of third gear. Just wasn't a big enough truck for the job, but I think it was because of the way they built
The wheels,
the
big,
trailer,
oh yeah, and on the way to Overland Park, to Kansas, to Edwardsville there, every time we stopped and he started, he blew a tire. And that's because, well, later on he explained that to us, that's because the wheels weren't aligned. And one time, we had started and the tire blew.
we were traveling down the road.
We're traveling on the freeway, and so I pulled next to him and I had Ralph open the window and tell him, tire, tire, to make him know that this
Guess what the
tire
truck
was
driver
flat.
heard?
And it,
Fire.
he heard fire. Oh, you should have seen how fast that thing got stopped, And so then, okay, and that was the last.
Right,
Well,
as a little
he had
kid, I knew my
spares.
parents told me.
He had spares on there, and we used all 4 spares. And this was the last spare that he put on. And so we said, we're not stopping. So, and I needed to pay him when we got to Edwardsville. So on the way we stopped, I can't remember what city we stopped, and went to the bank and got cash out of the savings account to pay him when we got there. We actually took us
Tell
quite
about
a long,
what you did when you were driving past was it a truck stop or a restaurant or something, when you saw us, you
yeah.
wanted to get together with us?
And I tried to catch up with them, and so there was, yeah,
See,
it
I'm
was an
driving the
excess.
truck with-
The truck
with
was
one-
Michael,
with
and
one-
I had the 2 little ones. And so I saw him, and I went off over across the median or whatever I did, and down there just to get to. Oh,
It's a wonder I survived my childhood.
Nowadays, oh my gosh, I wouldn't dare do that.
Well, you'd have been put in jail because
Yeah.
of dunking your kid in the
In the
pit.
river, oh, jeez.
That's
Yeah.
true, you probably would have, so.
Yeah, nowadays that would have been
Yeah.
child abuse.
So you lived in Overland Park for how many years?
I was there for 12 years
Okay.
when I went to optometry school.
What made you
Yeah.
decide to change careers?
I got tired of being at the college because
Fed up with the
I could see I
politics.
was not getting anywhere. I didn't really see much of a future there except for doing what I was doing.
What you were doing?
And, which was a good job.
was
It was
okay.
important, but I saw this ad in Science Journal for a program they had at the New England College of Optometry that is, with a PhD degree, you could actually get through in 2 years. So I took the OCATS test and did okay on it, not super, but okay. And then got
Got
accepted, and so we went there and went through the program.
So what were some of the challenges you faced, you being in Boston and you being back here with?
Well, I was still working, and
Well, the biggest problem I had was that after about, sometime in the middle of summer, in that first quarter we were there, they gave us 2 weeks off. I was thinking, what am I going to do for 2 weeks in Boston with, 2 weeks off? So I decided to drive home. And there was a guy that had also applied to, he's a veterinarian, and he lived in some town in Michigan, I forget which town it was. But anyway, he decided to drop out. So I and I had picked him up in Michigan to take him, and we carpooled to Boston. So I took him back home. And then we left on a Thursday night, it was about 5 o'clock, and I drove all night, or we drove all night, and I didn't want him to drive because I had him drive before and I didn't trust him to drive the car. And so I would sleep, you know, maybe for 15 minutes and drive
After you
along.
dropped them off.
Pick up, you know, get a tank. You know, what I'd do is I'd drive for a half a tank and then sleep for 15 minutes, and then finish the half tank and get filled up again and sleep for 15 minutes and proceed across, going that way. And I dropped him off at his home and drove the same way through Ohio and Illinois, whatever. Got to Kansas City about midnight on Saturday. It was late Friday night or early Saturday morning. And then Hella said, your dad passed away. And here I was, no shower, I was all stinky, I had a beard stubble, you know, and my first thought, oh no, I have to drive to Riverton, Wyoming.
Another 1,000 miles.
And then I thought, wait a minute, your dad's gone. And so it kind of hit me that. So we had to do some work on the duplex we had, so I fixed that. And then we took off and Heidi was with us and we stayed at, was it Rock Springs? And then we went up to Riverton, where the funeral was, and then we drove back. And so a good part of my 2 weeks was used up just in traveling.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's when I had the lesson reinforced that hair and nails continued to grow after death. Because we could see it, you know, on my dad, on his body.
Interesting.
And on the way from there to home, he was speeding and he got a ticket.
Is that right? I don't remember that.
Yeah. Was that, or was it a different trip? One of the trips from Boston to Overland Park.
Oh, yeah, okay, that was not on the way back home from Riverton, Wyoming, that was coming across from
Boston
to
yeah,
Kansas City.
Kansas City
Or
there.
Overland Park. Yeah,
He was speeding
I was
through one of
speeding
the cities.
in Ohio.
Ohio, okay.
And it, you know, I got caught. You know, I saw the cop, but I knew I had it. And I was going like 80 in a 70 mile an hour zone. And he said, well, you can pay for this right now if you want. Really? So he had this credit card, he had it, he wrote it up on a credit card
little
machine.
credit card machine, you
He
know,
didn't
the
have
old
it,
ones,
he
yes,
didn't
there's
have
those.
that. He just wrote it up on the card. I said, you know, I thought maybe you might want to get one of these little machines that would make things a little bit more efficient for you.
Oh, whatever.
I didn't tell him that, but I thought of it.
Well, I remember you had flown to Boston and you were flying home and we picked you up at the airport.
Yes.
And this is
In
the
the
time,
Jeep.
in the Jeep, and this is when I thought, she doesn't like me. Because Rob told you he had asked me to marry him. And I think your response was, are you really gonna go through with it this time? And I went,
Oh, yeah, because he'd done that.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right, another girl.
I think I sat really quiet for the rest of the trip home thinking, I don't think she likes me.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I knew better, I knew
But-
you were a keeper.
Yeah, but that was not, I mean, I was just, okay, what do I say or don't I say or what, you know, so.
Yeah, I
But
think,
anyway.
unfortunately, when I was going to school, I missed a couple of important events that my kids had.
So,
Yeah,
And
we're
then
35 years later.
Joe called me and asked me for my daughter's hand in marriage, so I told him, yeah.
Okay, so you went to Boston, you finished that, you came home, and then you went to,
and then he
We moved to Hill
worked,
City,
he worked
Kansas.
for a couple of,
Couple months with her for doctor in
Optometrist
Kansas City.
in Kansas City,
well, that's right.
you know, because, see, we were hoping that he would pass the Missouri state boards and maybe go back and teach at the college as an optometrist, but that, you know, never
Yeah,
worked out.
Lennon wanted me to do that.
Yeah, because the president, you know, at the time, so anyway, that would have been okay, but they weren't doing the Missouri boards soon enough.
Well, the
So-
problem is that I didn't pass the Missouri boards. 70% of the optometrists that took the Missouri boards failed.
Yeah, but we were
Really?
already in Kansas and Hill City by that time, when you took those. So, anyway, we couldn't get into
They
those.
regave the boards again, but I didn't take them again.
No. Here, the way I remember it is that you worked for these two optometrists, or one optometrist, whatever, in Kansas City, and then decided, well, we gotta get on our own, and they needed somebody in Hill City, so we moved out there, but we kept the house in Overland Park and everything.
Yeah, we stayed there
And
while you were in
Right.
Hill
We
City.
did that, and then they were
I
giving the
remember that
boards.
drive to Hill City, that was not fun.
Yeah, right.
And Dad picked up a hitchhiker because we were thinking about picking him up, and Dad stopped and picked him up instead because it was sleeting. We had that ice storm and we were doing like 10 miles an hour on the interstate all the way out to Hill City. I mean, it was like 7-8 hour drive.
Yeah.
I had to
But
get
anyway,
Cars took
when we
over on
got
the side.
to,
Yeah,
when they finally were able to do the boards, they were doing the Missouri boards and the Washington boards at the same time, because at that time, Mother needed more help, and she was already in Seattle.
That's right.
And Giddy said, you know, why don't you come up here and do? So he took both boards. Missouri one didn't pass because what they did is they gave most of the questions from the Missouri school of, you know, for optometrists. And everybody from the outside had no clue what they were asking for. There were 75% of them didn't pass the boards. So, and then he did pass the Washington boards. So, while he was up there taking the boards, he met that optometrist, and he says, I really could use another optometrist because I have an office and this guy's leaving. And so, when we passed them, then we moved up to Seattle.
Yeah, I wrote a letter to our patients in Hill City. I told them, I said, you know, and then for some reason in August that year, it rained half of the month. So I said, you know, I'm going to have to move up to Seattle because it rains too much down here.
So anyway, so that's how we ended up. And we were going to rent, we had renters for the house Overland Park because we hadn't been able to sell it. And as they were coming in, then the house got sold, so that was another story, but we're all worked out.
And then I picked out a house to rent that was real close to the practice, which I thought would work at least until we could build another house of our own. Of course, it was a shock to Helen when she saw it. But,
was that the one when we drove out to visit you that we like stayed in the basement
Probably.
with the black tempo?
I think so.
Because we stayed with you.
Is that the one where your tires all got
Yeah,
stolen?
yeah. From
The wheels got stolen.
The
The
wheels
wheels,
got
that's
stolen
right.
from, the
The car
whole
was left on
wheels.
jack
Cin-
stands.
On decks
Or on
in the
cinder
middle of
block.
the night.
I remember
That was that little
The
Mazda.
little blue
Yeah,
Mazda.
blue Mazda we had, yeah.
Then we got locking lug nuts with it. Every time we had service on the car, we had to give them the special
Key to it.
lug nuts for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, such is life. And then that worked out, I mean, in the end, that Seattle move worked out well.
Uh-huh.
So we worked for this guy in Edwards, in
Edwards, in Surprise Lake Square.
Surprise Lake Square for
That's
a
a shopping,
while.
a
And then
shopping mall there.
we saw this sign that says iTech, you know, and we said, oh, we ought to inquire about that. And so that's when what is now Pearl was iTech, and they were opening the South Center one,
I remember
and
that
they
big mall.
flew us down to Texas because they were out of Texas, interviewed us, and we got the job because iTech was the glasses part, and we had the doctors.
Just one little correction on that trip to Texas. That wasn't for interview for the job. That was to learn how to do pumping
Oh,
and
pump the
cruising.
plugs, yeah.
Well, wasn't one of those trips we came out here with Alex as a newborn?
Yeah, we took
We,
him out
we,
there.
we
Yeah.
flew, and because I remember
He was
going.
about
You got
4 months
sunburned.
old. He,
Yeah.
That was his first, yeah, he was
You
about
got
4 months.
But I
sunburned pretty
think
bad.
that was,
Yeah, he
Yeah.
got a sunburn.
Yeah.
Oh, real bad. I
but
mean,
were we
blister
already in our house?
at the bowling
I
place.
think so.
And
Yeah.
were we already in the house?
Yes, because the
In the big
pictures I
house.
have,
Okay,
Yeah.
I was in that,
Were-
okay.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, Heidi
Yeah.
had come out and we stayed at Surprise Lake Square and she had Laura
Mhm.
with her.
Well,
And,
we had moved into our house by the time she came.
No, we were in the process of finishing the house. The house was not finished.
Well, I remember
All the pictures we
when
have,
Heidi came out on another trip one time, because I remember taking Laura through the backwoods.
that was later on, yes.
Yeah,
That
I
was
was
that.
standing on my shoulder. and-
Which
Yes.
birthday was it that we all came out and you didn't know we were coming and we all went up into your bedroom and we surprised you?
Oh, yeah,
I don't
probably
remember.
my
Yeah.
60th.
Okay, it was your 60th birthday,
Maybe.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or
Because we all came
65th
out.
or whatever. Well, probably the 60th, I'm guessing.
Mhm.
I'd have to go back and think about that one.
Yeah,
Look at it.
I remember that one.
Yeah, and I remember that one too.
That was fun.
You guys
Yep.
are good, especially Heidi's good at that.
Oh,
She
She,
likes to-
is it done it
her and her
what,
husband showed
twice
up
now?
in Hawaii when we were on our mission there,
Yeah,
on Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
We knew
2
she
days,
was
2
coming.
days before he had the surgery.
I
You knew
she
that she was coming?
I knew she was going, yeah.
Yeah, well, but we didn't. So that was one time. What was the other time? She,
Well, when we were just moved into the house here, she got a ride
Oh,
with
here,
a friend
yeah.
that was gonna attend a family reunion.
in Provo.
And so
and
we were
she
down
came
at, down in Logan at one of the shopping, we were doing some shopping down there. Heidi called, talked to Mom for a little while, and Mom went into the store and gave me the phone, and Heidi said, "Don't tell Mom, but I'm here in Logan now, in Cache Valley. We'll be coming to your house here before long." I said, "Okay, well, I'll go get Mom and give some excuse for going home real
Getting
quick. I'm getting tired, honey, we gotta go home," or whatever, I don't remember what I said.
I don't know either. But, yeah.
But then we came up here and then Heidi comes sneaking around the cars. So yeah, she's good at that.
Yeah,
And then, let's see, then we moved out to, after we moved out to Seattle, things were pretty stable, and then we got us into a situation with Pearl where they wanted us to practice optometry in a way that none of the 14 of the eye doctors that were in the system wanted to do. They were going to put a big full-page ad in the paper, say something like exams and glasses, kind of like what America's Best does.
Mhm.
They're trying to compete with them.
they
I
wanted
guess.
us to do quick eye exams and then,
They
you know,
were- they didn't realize what the insurance climate was like in
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 Seattle.
Seattle. If you don't except King County for Boeing, you're pretty much
Just
dead
some.
in the water. Because they're not
And
going to go
that's
to
what they
anybody
wanted
that...
us to do, no insurance, this and so all of us, all the
And we actually had
optometrists.
one of my classmates was high up in the Pearl system, and we told him that that's not going to work out
It's
here.
not gonna work.
And
And
sure
it's,
enough,
oh,
it did.
yeah. So
It
2
didn't.
months later,
They wanted us to do the same thing we were doing before that all happened, but we'd all
we're
lost our
already in
contact.
other, they were
Yeah,
coming to us and
situation.
says, do you wanna come back? And, we told you so, it wouldn't work. Yeah, you're right,
And
you
that's
told
when we
her so. That's
Found
when
that
we went
space
into,
where we had our office,
Okay.
and we were there for like 15 years, I think.
15.
Well,
yeah.
did it work out better going out on your own?
Yeah,
Oh, it
much
did,
better.
I mean, that was a,
We started out with a bang because we were supposed to be an independent doctor of optometry, so all of the optometric records we had were ours, and we could
Were
take those
ours.
with us.
and that's
The
what.
glasses
saved us.
records belonged to Pro,
Right.
but we didn't get those, but we
But
got
we didn't
all
need
of
them.
the eye exam
All
stuff.
the eye exams,
And
all the
contact lenses
addresses,
that-
and so we wrote
And
letters
we wrote
to
letters to
every
everybody,
patient that we've seen in the 10, 15 years that we were with the
I had a,
Pearl system.
So
there.
you were actually the office manager, so to speak.
All the
You
way
worked
through.
together for
Yeah.
how many years?
30.
30 years.
well,
Ever since we
yeah,
moved
it was
to
30 years altogether.
Seattle, yeah.
And we were
How
We
was
were
that?
15 years at that location.
How was it working together? Did you find it, you were easy to work with, or did you get?
Yeah,
Oh, it was because I would do the front and he had the back, you know.
it
I
made
just
it
heard
easy
some
for me.
couples that
And even
just
at,
didn't work.
when we're at
All I had to
Pearl,
all I had to worry about was looking at eyeballs and figuring out what's wrong, you know, and which is better, one or two.
Yeah,
and I would do the paperwork, you know.
I couldn't
And
count past two, so I just
you
stopped
just
at
wanted
two.
to.
You know, if I tried to remember which was better, one or three, you know, that just didn't work, so I just
Yeah.
read them one set at a time,
Yeah,
One or two.
one lens at a time.
That-
And I could,
Everybody else
you know,
does it.
and sometimes people will say, well, this one looks clearer this time, and the next time they would say, the other one looks clearer, so I knew I was close.
yeah,
So maybe I'd trial frame them and take it from there, but, and I've had maybe 3 or 4 patients that I really couldn't make them
Make 'em happy.
satisfied. So after about the 5th try, I'd say, okay, what I'm gonna do is refund whatever money you've spent and let you go someplace else, because I'm not being able to satisfy you.
satisfy you.
So, and we
And
had one of the ladies that I did that to, I went to the Seattle Temple and there she was playing the organ in the Sister Broomhead.
But that was when we were still at Pearl.
Yeah,
Once we got our own office, we didn't have,
I don't remember,
that was all at
Well, I don't know, I had a
Pearl.
complaint about my eye doctor then squirting saline solution in my mouth.
tastes good, doesn't it?
No!
I think family, they can do whatever they want.
I remember, was it Alex, I think, or Andrew, I can't remember for sure, but he said, Grandpa, would you check my eyes? I said, sure, close them. Took out a felt tip pencil. Another check.
I don't know which one.
I don't remember. Oh, wow.
No, actually, getting into private practice was because that's when we really made the money. And that's when we got,
Well, we were fortunate to have Kathy work for us, because she
Yeah,
wasn't
she-
licensed as an optician, but she knew what she was
she
doing.
knew what she was
And
doing.
legally, she could work under my license, so.
So
Yeah.
did she come with the office when you purchased?
No,
it?
no,
Or
we,
she-
see, when we were, so anyway, oh, Kathy. So anyway, she was working for that optometrist, and it took about an hour from her house to that office.
We were about
And,
5 minutes from her house.
and she
to
lived
where we-
5 minutes from where we had our practice, and she said, can I come work for you? I said, okay, sure, because we knew her through the Pearl system too,
So
you
between
know.
the two of you.
So
you
I
made
knew
the
what
team.
she could do, and
The biggest
Yes.
thing was, you know.
she wanted to
fitting-
have Saturdays
fitting
off,
progressive lenses.
you know. And she was a whiz, and so I turned the glasses totally over to her. I said, you know this stuff better
And she
than
did
I
the
do.
insurance.
And I did this insurance and the whole stuff, made appointments and that worked out just fine. It did all the billing, people would pay me for their, you know, glasses and stuff. And she did that, and we both learned how to do measurements on glasses when the reps came in, because I wanted to know, you know, just in case. But her thing was, to work for us, she wanted to have Saturdays off. I said, no problem, you can do that. And I can do, Saturday mornings is when we had the office open. I can handle that. Because she had to work Saturdays, the old place, and her husband is off on Saturdays. So they wanted to do things together because
Sure.
they had a fifth wheel and they wanted to do camping and stuff.
And I tried to treat the patients with respect and dignity, and I felt that my job was to, number one, determine what their vision problems were, and
So,
whatever factors affected that, and number two, to explain and list the options for solving the problem, and then 3, to let them decide which way they
option,
wanted
yes.
to.
and even when we worked at Pearl, you know, we paid off our house, and so we had no debts or anything. And then when we had the money to pay for building it out, and starting that, it was like $85,000 that it cost us to build out that blank space off
And
there
the strip mall
and
there.
get the strip mall and get all that started and everything. And then we started running into Randy Nichols, and he became our financial advisor, so,
He still is.
and he still is, and, you know, everything that we didn't need, we zapped into there. And he's the one that was so fantastic, was that, so besides our retirement, we pull out about 40,000 a year out of retirement and not even touching the base.
So it's just
So-
the interest.
Yeah, it's just the interest.
You had a good advisor then. That's
Yeah.
great. That's important.
So, you know, I mean, that's why we do what we
So
can
has
do.
retirement been everything you'd hoped it was until
Yeah,
this last
yeah.
couple of
Pretty
months?
much what I expected.
Yeah.
It worked out
You know,
fine.
there were some things I hoped would have turned out a little bit different, but, you know,
But, you
that's
know.
pretty much what we expected.
And you
Yeah,
enjoyed it, or do you
we
miss?
were
Yeah.
able
Yeah,
to
I
go
miss
on a
going to work?
mission, you know.
Well, two of
and
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
actually,
did.
you know, went to, on
We
two
served two, one
because,
for 23 months, one for 8.5 months.
Absolutely.
so,
Well.
And
whatever.
that's, you know, that's one of the things I really love about the church. President Monson said for those that have to leave their missions early, for whatever reason,
Serves.
know that we appreciate the service that you gave. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's okay.
So if you had advice for, say, your grandchildren, what would you tell them?
I
Live
think,
within your budget to start with.
I guess my advice would be more of a eternal nature. I'd say, study the gospel, learn it, understand it, and live it. And if you don't like it, then lump it.
Too bad. But at the
Answers.
same time, you know, you get this lump together. Live within your means.
Well, yeah, I
And-
think that you know, the practical things of life are important too, and you
Yeah.
got to be able to handle those. Because if you can't afford to live your life like you want it to, then there's less likelihood that you're going to be active in the church.
Right. Right.
But you know,
I mean,
the
we've
gospel means
always,
everything
from
to me.
day one that we got married, I said, we are never going to go on welfare. There was one time that we was, okay, do we pay tithing or do we get the groceries? And we went to the church and the bishop said, pay your tithing. And then the Relief Society came, took the grocery list, and Ralph, no, Michael needed a pair of shoes. No, you cannot have shoes, you can only have, that was it. After that, I said, never, ever will I ask for anything. So we always put money away for his tuition, and we put a little away in the savings. And we may do with the rest.
And then we paid our tithing also.
Yeah, always. I never did that again. And we haven't. And our kids were the best dressed in Sunday school. Because I made all their
I have
clothes.
an impeccable fashion sense I got from my mother.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. But anyway,
Any questions you got, Rob?
Well, I was just gonna say, I remember a couple of instances as kids when you did cakes where one of us threw a rock through a window when you were doing a cake. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. That was, I think it was our car.
there's a car window.
Yeah.
Not-
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We
That
were-
was Michael, right?
I really don't remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because it wasn't me. I don't think it was me.
I think I know who it was now.
Yeah, we know who it was now.
I don't think it was me.
No,
No, it was
You-
Michael. Yeah, yeah.
Guilt comes out.
you were the angel with the horns on it.
Well, if I remember right, we were trying to have a contest to see who could throw the rocks the farthest. And we started way far away, but, you know, and we did it several times because we couldn't throw them that far, but instead of, you know, turning around and throwing the other way, we just kept advancing until one of us hit the
Hit
window.
something.
Yeah, and it was like,
And what was the cake for? That was
it was at a church thing, wasn't it?
something-
Yeah,
Could've
yeah.
But I don't
been
know
some-
that it was a wedding because you weren't, I
No.
don't remember you being
No,
that
that-
upset about the cake
No, it
getting
was
ruined.
probably
It's like a church function or something.
church functions and we were supposed to bring the cake.
Yeah.
So, no cake. wheat.
It was pretty to look at, but nobody
So
could
do
eat it.
you
Sorry,
remember
we
your
don't wanna
mom
take a
being
chance on
pretty
eating
laid
this,
back
you may
when you
have
guys
rash
would do
guards
dumb
in it.
things?
Well,
More so than my dad, because he would whop me upside the head for trying to do magic tricks.
yeah, right. No, I think we
You're
kind
never
of,
gonna live that down. 50 years later, and I'm still bringing it up.
well, I think I was laid back in a way, but when it counted, he got a paddling once with my wooden spoon, and he had a snowsuit on, and I broke the spoon on it.
I do remember a story about a pierced ear, and I guess you got a little upset about that.
Oh, yeah, that one, he and his boy, friend, was Kevin Carl, something like that.
The guys that did the event, Scots. Yeah,
Scott,
Keith Scott.
Yeah, Keith, okay. And they came home with earrings in. And I said,
How long did it take you to notice?
3 or 4 days.
no, it did not
Yes,
either.
because I finally had to go like this, because that was when I had my beard, and it was a little gold stud, and I had the gold beard, and so it was camouflaged, and I kind of went like this to you one time, and that's when you saw it. And
Don't remember it that way. I remembered you and him coming in, and you had just gotten them in.
Well, maybe he had them for a few days, but he just put them in.
Did
Yeah.
you know that he
Whatever.
only did it to see
Yeah.
if he could get a rise out of you?
They were out. They were out.
Did you know that he wasn't planning to keep it?
No.
He wasn't. From
No.
what I hear, he
No.
said he just wanted.
I did not know, but I threw a fit.
So
which
you
is kind of
tell
what
her.
I thought would happen.
So you tell her why you got it.
Well, the
She
only
wanted
reason
to-
why I
wanted
got
to
it is
throw a
Keith-
fit.
Keith wanted one,
Yeah.
and he had to pay the price for 2.
Yeah.
So it was like a free deal, and I thought, well,
Why not?
I'll do it, just see what Mom does.
Yeah. And apparently Keith's mother let him keep it.
Yeah.
If I remember.
Keith's
right.
mother is not doing well. She has cancer,
Uh-huh.
and
Really?
she's going through chemo. She's lost all of her hair. They do our vending machines at the temple, and
Oh,
Brother
okay.
Scott is very concerned about her, and
Hmm.
she has ovarian cancer. And
Well, that's what my aunt in Germany had. This is when I went to Germany.
And her personality is kind of, you never know what you're going to get, Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Depends on how she feels.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
she's,
you know, if the cancer spreads to, especially to the brain,
Mhm.
you know, you don't know what to expect.
yeah.
I remember, one of the things I remember growing up was we were driving in the middle of winter in the station wagon, and I was in the very back taking a nap, and I remember waking up because we were spinning around.
Yeah, that's when we were going from Fort Collins to Logan.
And I wasn't with you at the time.
And I was driving. And I had all 3 of kids in there, and I hit the slick spot.
She's like a
And-
race car driver.
And I went around and I came face to face, stopping with a big
Oh.
semi.
Oh my goodness.
And I hit the pillar abutment, you know, on
Mhm.
underpass.
Mm-hmm.
And we made it into Rock Springs because just before Rock Springs, it sounded like thump, thump, thump on the car.
And it wasn't you this time, was
No,
it?
and it was a flat tire. And we had to get a new tire in Rock Springs because by the time we got to Rock Springs, on that tire, the tire was shot.
And that was our new station wagon, wasn't it?
Yeah. mhm.
Yeah, because I remember waking up as we're spinning around going, what's happening? And Mom yelling, shut up!
Yeah, and Grandma was with us
Oh, okay.
too because Grandma insisted. That was when I had my appendix out.
Mm.
Well,
I had
actually,
my
you had,
appendix out,
that was because of the gallstone.
right, but I had my appendix out.
Yeah.
And then when we had an x-ray done and it showed the gallstones, and Mother insisted to go to Logan to a naturopath.
Mm.
And that was 2 weeks in Logan, because I had that sick leave at the hospital. And, oh yeah, you drink this, what, castor oil or something like that?
Yeah, there was castor oil, apple juice, and
Something, whatever.
the castor oil was supposed to lubricate the bile duct,
to
the
get
gallbladder
the
duct.
stones out. Well, the stones happened to be so big they could not have gone through there, but I didn't know that. Oh, you know, whatever. And,
So she came back and the doctor x-rayed her and all 7 stones were still there.
they were still there. They looked like a cluster of grapes. And he said, you need surgery. And so I had the surgery, and all this time though was covered because I had enough vacation days, you know, accumulated.
And I think that was in 1969 when you did that, right?
Yeah.
So at what
So-
point did Grandma move in with you? Where were you living? Was it in Overland Park that she came, or?
Yeah.
And where had she come
Well,
from?
also,
Logan.
she lived with us when we lived in Fort Collins.
And
also.
Fort Collins, she's not permanently, she
No.
was still in Logan, but she came and stayed with us for
Well,
quite a while.
I remember one
And
trip.
she's sleeping in the couch in the living room.
I remember one trip, I think from Fort Collins to Logan, I went with her to go visit her, and I rode with some family friends or something like that, because she actually paid for me to go up in a little Piper Cub plane and do a flying deal around Logan
really?
Airport. It was like for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Could be,
I don't, it could very well be, but I don't remember that.
I remember it wasn't, it was like you shipped me off with some friends or something like that were driving through to go see Grandma.
It was something I think for you because
'Cause you
Heidi
didn't get to
went
go to
to some,
Germany.
whatever it
No,
was,
this
it
is way
was,
before that.
it
Well,
was,
you didn't get to
it
go to
was
Germany,
for
but you
a-
got plane trips.
Yeah,
so.
it
Well,
was-
I think they did those too, you know.
yeah, whatever,
Because I remember I was the first one of the kids to get in an airplane, even though it was a little.
yeah.
I got a trip like that when Federal Way once.
Oh, yeah.
On my birthday.
Yeah, I
On
remember
one of his
hearing about
birthdays, I
that.
gave him that one, right, so. Oh, well, it's bedtime.
So life's been good.
Life's been
Yeah,
good.
that's been,
Well, we can't.
it's been fast too. I just can't imagine where everything went.
Yeah.
It went.
All of a sudden, here we are.
Oh, so I don't know if I told you, but you need to update your life story for the last 25 years or something where you stopped writing it.
You may or may not get that.
Yeah,
This may be it.
no.
You'll have to type it up from here.
And
Not bad.
then we retired from the business and sold it. We went through some interesting experiences doing that. We interviewed several people. We finally went back to the second guy that came in, sold it to him, and he's doing very well with it now. And so
He actually moved out of the area
we
that we
moved
were
into
in.
an
a
area
couple
about
of
2 miles north of
blocks.
where we were, and he's got a real nice operation now, and he's doing a good job for the community and
That's great.
doing very well.
He always wanted to have several offices.
Yeah, he
So
probably
he's
will.
actually has another doctor with him working there the last time we were there, you know, before we left.
And
So,
then
I was-
we sold our business and